Hello, my name's Wendy Liebman, and I am the CEO and Chief Shopper at WSL Strategic Retail. Thank you for joining me today. Welcome to my home. As most of us are today, we are working, if we can, from our homes around the world. And I must say, I really do appreciate the fact that we have people on this webinar on the other side of the screen in Europe, in Canada, some sleeping who got up to listen in Australia. And I really do appreciate that. It's very emotional and very appealing and very helpful to know that you are all there. We live in interesting times, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. I should first say that from all of us at WSL, we send our very best wishes to you all. I hope that you're well and your families are well and your colleagues are well and your communities are managing through all this extraordinary time. Somebody once said, may we live in interesting times? Maybe less so if we could help it. But that said, we are here to discuss not just what's going on right now, but really to talk about the future. That's what we're good at, thinking about how do we move forward in this situation. And that's what we're going to help you do today, or what I'm going to help you do on behalf of our team. One of the things I want to talk a little bit about just before we get started is apologies for any noises. You know, we're at home, right? So family, friends, dogs, cats, no doorbells ringing unless it's, you know, the delivery guys, right? You might hear a clock chime, all of those things. Just before we got started, I remembered that. I ran downstairs and stopped a clock. So hopefully you won't hear too many of those. So excuse that. And hopefully, since I am also in charge of technology as well as content today, see, what did I tell you? Phone rings. So hopefully there's somebody upstairs who's going to pick that phone up right now, because I couldn't figure out how to turn it off. So fingers crossed, be patient, and we'll all be very empathetic towards each other. So let me begin. One of the things that we want to talk about today, or I want to talk about today, is very clearly this story about how America shops in crisis. Now, one of the things I have to do very quickly is figure out, sorry, you're going to hear all of this at the same time. Sorry, while I do this, I just need to work out how to get my picture out of the corner. There we go, out of that. Excellent, sorry. Now back to the matter at hand. Now I can focus for a while. How does America shop in crisis, in a COVID-19 crisis? That's what I'm going to talk about today. How do we not only ground the occasion, the moment, but how do we really think about the future? Because that's the pressure on us all, not to just deal with today, but really to deal as we move from health crisis into a financial crisis and out at the other end. You know, in some ways, we have the advantage of longevity at WSL, as many of us do. This is not our first crisis. So one of the things I plan to do as I talk through this is ground us in some of the crises that have happened before. And while this is a unique conversion of both health and financial issues, there is learning to be had. And I'm going to share some of that so we can begin to plan and think about the future. You know, here's the thing. Many of us were anticipating a correction in the economy. I mean, you know, the stock market was booming in the United States, unemployment was incredibly low, wages were beginning to rise, confidence was pretty steady and a positive mode. Many of our businesses were doing quite well. And within that context, we understood that there were other pressures that would come, that the stock market and the financial situation could not continue on like that. But we didn't really anticipate, most of us, that the correction would be as dramatic as this one. How could a condition, a virus, a disease be so beautiful, right, on the page, and yet so deadly? It was hard to anticipate just that. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, this ability for us to think about what we were anticipating, what actually happened, how people are shopping already in this health crisis. And then I'm going to talk about what does that mean for the future? What does that look like as we start thinking about shopping in the financial crisis, which will absolutely come, as we all know, as the health crisis recedes? And more importantly, number 3, how do we start the future now? How do we start that thinking right now? So that's what I'm going to take about the next 30 minutes to talk about. I'm going to share with you some of our most recent How America Shops research, which is our ongoing syndicated research that we syndicate that we've been doing for over 25 years. I'm going to share 2 latest pieces of data from the middle of March and the early part of April, just last week, right in the midst of this crisis. But I'm also going to step back and share with you what we saw in 2008 and 2009 as we went into the financial crisis and began to learn how to deal with the financial crisis and all the things that that created. Fundamentally, we're not here to think about this moment in time. We are here instead to really think about how do we plan for the future? What does this future look like for all of us? And that's what we need to think about right now. As I look at this moment, what becomes really important now is how we view all this. But first, what I wanted to do is just give you a little bit of an introduction. Sorry, I had to correct a screen there. That was technical things going on. But first, just a little bit of an introduction so you know who we are. Many of you do, many of you are clients, but I want you to understand the context and put some faces behind things. So quickly, you know, what we do is help our clients understand what we call shopping life. What are the macroeconomic, social, political, and technological trends that impact how people choose to spend their money on goods and services? And what is the why behind them doing that, the buy, where they buy, and what they will do next? And we do that, as I said, through our proprietary How America Shops research and our custom work that we do with many of you. You know, our role is to help you anticipate the future. And we do that, and I will do that now, by sharing with you this content from our How America Shops work that we do continuously, and as I said, have done for over 25 years. Also with our understanding of retailers and our close relationships with retailers across the country and across the world, and how that informs anticipating the future. And then third, how we help you activate. And so all those 3 pillars are part of this conversation today. I want to send regards from the team that have been working very hard on all this new work, as well as our everyday work, smiling faces that are there for you when you need us at all times. So don't forget, it's not just me today. It is this whole team that, if I could get the tech right, would have been on the screen. So here we are, shopping in a health crisis. What does that really look like today, grounding the crisis? Well, I think most of you will nod your head and react to this in obvious ways. What we see in our most recent work, which was fielded last week with a national population, as we said, of consumers around this country, most are now worried that they will get sick. 85% say they're very worried or moderately worried. That's up 13 points from 2 weeks ago. What's particularly interesting about that, if you look at the bar chart on the right of your screen, is of the I'm very worried people. You begin to see now, while it was older shoppers, older consumers, boomers, 2 weeks ago, now other age groups are catching up, obviously recognizing that this is not just a pandemic for the older older consumers around the world, but actually for everyone. You see Gen Z up 8 points from 2 weeks ago, millennials and Gen X up 10 points from 2 weeks ago, and we only anticipate these numbers will increase. I am worried, and that's the underlying message that we're hearing and that you all know. What's interesting then is when we look at the financial context of this, and you see this last November, yes, only 5 months ago, but a lifetime ago, 7 out of 10 Americans were telling us they were either financially optimistic or financially secure about their future. Only 29% were pessimistic about their future. So here we are today, 5 months later, still 6 out of 10 are feeling secure and optimistic-ish, but 4 out of 10 are now pessimistic. That's up 11 points, and that we know will grow. 4 out of 10 are now pessimistic that they are barely holding on or they're expecting things to get worse. Not surprisingly, much of that is it over indexes on lower income households under $50,000 a year. But for the most part, it's across the board, even the wealthier of the national population. The other thing we're seeing, which is really grounded and very real today, is a third are very worried already about paying bills, depleting their savings, being laid off. And you can see that across the board. What's particularly interesting about that is, in fact, in these smaller numbers that you can see, these are people who are already dealing with it. 6% of the national population say, I can't pay my bills already. 10% say my savings are already used up. 14%, someone in my household or myself has already been laid off, and 17% are saying their work hours are already cut off. And most of this will not be a surprise to you. We see this in the headlines every day. This is a rolling, fast-moving health and economic crisis. And new worries are beginning to emerge already. The issues around children falling behind in their schoolwork, 38%. A worry about crime increasing. We just heard that in New York City in the last few days of not major crimes, but robberies, burglaries, people, those kinds of crimes. We see people worried about not being able to get medical care or running out of food. Nobody's running out of toilet paper yet, I don't think, but you never know the black humor in these times. But people becoming more stressed, 1 in 5 working at home, and 1 in 5 saying they're lonely. So there's sort of social and emotional issues that are starting to emerge as well with all the pragmatic issues of day-to-day life. New worries emerging fast. And I should tell you, especially for families with children, perhaps not surprising, but important to recognize. So that setting the context of the moment is probably not a surprise to any of you, but I think it's really important already to understand the degree to which that is occurring and to kind of level set it so we all understand where we are. And I think many of us, it will resonate with many of us because guess what? We are all living this. So what does that mean as we start to think about the overall shopping impact? What are we already learning about that? Shopping in the financial crisis. Well, here's something that's really, really interesting. The competent shopper, the competent American shopper in crisis is already re-emerging. In this recent research that we delivered this last week, 52% of the national population are already saying, I am proud of how well I am managing in this crisis. So in spite of all the negative indicators I just showed you, more than half of the population now are saying, you know what, I'm proud of how I'm getting on with this. Why is that so? Well, look at the wave underneath this on the bottom of the table, on the chart. We have lived through crises in pretty intense ways for 20 years. Sometimes we forget this. We're very good soldiers. We just go through it, get on with it, and get on to our next lives, right? Our business lives. But in fact, beginning in 2001, in our recent memory, that was September 11. And that rolled into the longest wars in our history. This is not a political statement. This is just a fact. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Who even remembers the extraordinary climate issues of the tsunami in Thailand in 2004? And what about Hurricane Katrina in 2005? And then we lived through these extraordinary times of the gas roller coaster, where gas prices were $4 and $5 a gallon, where people were cutting back on traveling, as all part of this global recession rolled over us. And Wall Street and stock markets around the world crumbled, credit markets collapsed, and we saw this extraordinary and long and painful series of issues that came out of that as we moved through 2010, 2012, and onwards to today, where we reach the COVID-19 crisis. But why does it look like there are 12 years in a gap in that? Well, guess what? There was a whole lot of other stuff that was going on there, right? A whole lot of other stuff. Think about it. We've had trade wars. We've got an opioid crisis in this country. We've got climate issues of bushfires and floods around the country. I mean, the American consumer is an extraordinary animal, an extraordinary animal. We've lived through all of this. As business people, we've lived through all of this, and we have some knowledge, even in these incredibly difficult times. Already, 52% of Americans say, I'm proud of how well I'm managing in this crisis. One of the ways they're doing that, of course, is raising their hands or putting their hands in their pocket and just saying no. We're already seeing that half the population is saying they're cutting back or they're not sure what will happen in the near future. A third are telling us they're avoiding stores and websites where they're tempted. It's more than just getting the essentials. And 51% are saying, before I buy, I ask myself, is this a smart use of my money? Now, that's an interesting attribute. That's a metric that we tracked for many years, all the way through the recession, through many crises. And we start to see that emerging again as we move into this new crisis or through this new crisis. What's also interesting is this is the data from 2009. So you start to see kind of what might that high watermark look like? What could we expect in terms of cutting back or avoiding places where I'm tempted, or being smart and thinking twice before I put my money down? So you can see what we have to look forward to or not look forward to, or at least what will frame up how we deal with this and how we build relevant and appropriate relationships with our consumers, with our shoppers as we move forward. One of the big outcomes of all of this we've seen very quickly is how omni shopping is now for everyone. What's been particularly interesting in this recent work we've done is the growth of grocery and health shopping online, either for delivery or pickup. 56% of this national population of shoppers say they're now ordering groceries and health products online, either for delivery, or 51% pickup, so order online and pick up at the store. The reason that's so important is that grocery and health products were two of the lowest adoption categories online until now. And now we're starting to see through this health crisis, those grow tremendously. And you all know this because you're seeing the impact of it either personally or how you're dealing with it in your business. But what's really, really interesting about this, and that you need to keep a very close watch on, is that 50% of the people who've ordered their groceries and health products online are doing it for the very first time. That's up 5 points just in 2 weeks. But 1 in 2 of those people are doing it for the very first time, which shows us that there is no ignoring the power of omni as we move through and out of this crisis. In fact, what we know from all our How America Shops research is that once people begin to shop online, they don't walk away from it. It becomes a hugely useful tool. We saw that coming out of the 2008 recession as people used online shopping as a way to look for low prices and better deals. But we're seeing it now because of the convenience of it. There is no avoiding this or ignoring it. We also see it in other categories which were already growing more significantly online. Beauty, for example. 43% of women now tell us they have ordered beauty online for delivery or for pickup in these last few weeks. And that's up 13 points from 2019. And again, 28%, nearly 3 out of 10, said they've done this for the first time. So between beauty and health and groceries, we are seeing these categories amongst, in addition to all the other ones we're all familiar with, growing at significant rates online. And believe us, believe me when I say this will not go away. Of course, who's leading the charge on Omni, right? So what we see very clearly, which most of you know, I could look out the window here and see some of the trucks going by delivering, whether it's groceries or anything else. Amazon wins this game, not surprisingly. They were built to win this game. 2/3 of people have said they've ordered from Amazon in the last month. Walmart comes second at 44%. And so what you begin to see here is what I call this kind of shrinking of the universe. Yes, other people are in the game, but these two powerhouses, the ones who have invested most, one always and one catching up with Walmart, have done so in a way that now sets them in an extraordinary place to gain market share, customer relationships, and categories. We see the others, Target, Walgreens, CVS, Costco, down the list of others where people are beginning to order online or continue to order online. We also see it in terms of other types of retailers, so specialty clothing and supermarkets. We know about the supermarkets. We see department stores, home decor and pet stores, home decor being the Home Depots of the world, the Lowe's of this world, and stores where I can get things like I need a desk because we've got 6 of us around the dining room table, not in my house, but in some, now working. How do we give them some space and things? We see it in specialty stores from vitamins and beauty, office supplies and baby. This growth, this dramatic growth of the use of omni shopping to save us all in these moments when we don't want to go out and confront the physical stores. So the world is changing fast, very fast. Consumers, shoppers are now telling us what they're thinking about, what they'd like to do, what they'd like to get back to, and much of that is available from us as we move through this research. But for now, what I really wanted to talk about was how do we start to build the future now? How do we really start to envision and think about it right now? That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. To not only understand what we're living through, but to be incredibly conscious of how we move forward. There is more, not today, but I want you to know that we are not only here for you, but there is more information and access for you. If you are already a How America Shops subscriber, you can access more of this content with a deeper dive by demographics, by some of the emotional questions we've asked about what people are wanting and missing, retailers' caring scores. You'll be able to also access the next version of, as we update this How America Shops in Crisis Trend Report and our deeper dives into how do people think coming out through a recession. So you'll be able to access that. If you're not a subscriber, of course you should be. But if you're not, there is free content for everyone. So don't forget, go onto our website and there are blogs, there are trend alerts, we've got our podcasts, our social media news. So there's lots of content that you will be able to access. For all of those of you who signed up, we will share with you we'll share with you this content from today. So you will have this view of what you've heard, and you will not just have to have written all these notes. I probably should have told you that earlier, right? And then we are all here to help, not just Candace, my business partner, our president, or Elise Marshall, who is in charge of business development, but really our entire team are here to help. So please do not hesitate to reach out. You are part of our community and our family. So as I end this today, I'm going to get emotional again. I will take a breath. I wish you well. I wish your families well. I hope that next time we see each other, I will be able to not just invite you into my home, hopefully invite you into our offices where we can share a meal, a coffee, a tea, a cocktail. Take care. Be well.